All right, so Genesis chapter 32-ish. We are around. We've been around that area. We're going to look at today. We're going to see Jacob and Esau kind of coming back together and rekindling their relationship, which is great. And after, obviously, we know what happened between the two of them. So we talked last week, if I remember right. Jacob flees. Jacob runs away in the night, if you will, and gets out of there. And that doesn't go well with his father or his uncle Laban. And Laban is upset about that. And I think we went through that, if I'm remembering right. Sorry, sometimes it's tough to remember my own, studies versus the studies we have in class. But Laban pursues Jacob, if you recall, in 31, and they come to an agreement, right? They come to I think this is where we left off, they come to a covenant between the two of them, right? But also they recognize God in the covenant as a witness, and they call on God to watch and judge whether or not they're both following their end of the bargain, right? Their end of the covenant, as we would, their end of the deal, however you want to say it. The agreement that they make, they ask, God to stand in between them and be a witness. It's in 31 and verse 44, 45. You and I, let a witness be between you and me. Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And then if you keep going in 49, therefore it was named, Galeed and Mizpah, for he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. So they asked God to bless their covenant. Not too indifferent than when you are getting married and you are going through a marriage ceremony. Those that, if you've married somebody, which I have, and I know Mike's done it quite a few times.
No, just once.
Yeah. Marry somebody as far as
Yeah.
Funny how I got it. So as he has officiated there, you ask God. Really, I think if it's done well, you're asking God to recognize the union between the two parties, right? And you're asking God to support them. And the whole idea of a wedding ceremony, right, is having witnesses, and the witnesses are supposed to support and uphold the couple as well, too, not just get the free meal, right? But anyhow, for this covenant, again, they're asking God to be a witness between them and uphold their covenant. And so it's a nice part of the scripture there. And that's what we ended up with in 31. 32, if you're reading ahead, as you should be, hopefully, Jacob and Esau are going to come back together and rekindle their relationship. But as you see in 32, if you look there right away, Jacob, in 32, my Bible actually has the heading of Jacob's fear of Esau, right? So was he rather excited to see Esau right away, or was he was a little nervous, wasn't he? And rightly so, right? We probably credit that to Esau that was okay. He had the right to be a little upset maybe with Jacob, right? But Jacob's a little nervous, and we talked about it, I think, this last time. He sends him a gift, right? And I think we mentioned last time the volume of this gift, pretty incredible, right? Very sizable gift that he sends to Esau to try to make amends, right? The one question I'm not sure we got to, though, was, and it's right in this section, did we answer the question, what can we learn from Jacob's prayer in Genesis 9 through 12? Did we answer that one yet? I don't think we did. So before we get too far into the meeting of the two of them, what do you see in 9 through 12? Maybe let's just read it real quick. Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, I will prosper you. I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with my staff only I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him that he will come and attack me, and the mothers and children. For you said, I will surely prosper and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which is too great to be numbered. So what do you notice in this prayer? Let's just kind of pick this out real quick. Is he just scared of Esau? And, he's just kind of scared. And he's reaching out. What do you recognize?
He's scared, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
I wrote on the side, repentance.
Yeah.
He's repenting, not only to God for sure, but not sure if Esau is on the right page or not, and they both are really.
Well, he hasn't talked to Esau yet, so maybe the memory of Esau and now running into Esau is sparking up and renewing that memory of what he did, right? And maybe he's realizing, remembering rather, this is what I did to my brother, and now he's repentant of it, right? Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm sure he's heard about Esau's situation since the last time he saw him.
Sure.
He's doing a little better.
Yeah,
he's
doing fine too. They're both doing well.
What Jacob is doing, he's preparing. He split it between two companies.
Yeah.
He's preparing as though he may attack.
True, that's true.
But
no, he's very scared. Yeah.
What's the ultimate thing about the prayer? He don't try to handle it on his own. He
Right.
went to God in prayer.
No. He knows that these are some moments we're going to see this. We'll see it a couple chapters, but there's let's see with Joseph. These moments where God's people, I want to say this, actually trust Him, right? God's people actually trust Him. God's people actually rely on Him. They're refreshing moments, right? Because we're going to be reading, and we have been reading a lot of these chapters. Just a lot of people making lots of mistakes, right? And it's nice to see and nice to read when we see them trusting in God or making a good decision. It's nice to read, right?
He's also reminding God of his power.
True. Yeah. Well, maybe reminding himself too, right?
Yeah.
And saying it. Yeah. Maybe recognizing that he hasn't. Maybe. I see what you're saying, reminding God, but I think maybe a little both of reminding himself, maybe even that we have a covenant relationship together, and I need to trust in you more, and I'm relying on you to help me. Yes, I made a mistake with Esau, but paraphrasing a lot of his prayer now, obviously. But I made a mistake with Esau, but I need you to deliver me from it. Go ahead.
In the beginning of the prayer, it's, I think, important to see that he's drawing upon the faithfulness of God to his fathers Abraham and Isaac.
Yeah.
He's been faithful to them, and now he's faithful to him.
Yeah.
And of course, that's an important thing to realize. God is faithful, but here's the evidence: He's been faithful to my fathers.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Okay. So then, of course, as I mentioned before, he sends this large gift, right? And it's sent to him. That's in the end of 22. And really, I think at the end of 32, he arrives the same night. And I think that's where they cross the river and I guess he sends his family out away from him, right? So he ends up being by himself, is kind of what I'm gathering at the end of 32. If I'm reading that right, correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I was understanding, he sends his family away from him, really, and he's alone. Why is that, right? We don't really speculate. I don't think it says, but maybe he's trying to just keep them safe, or maybe he's just trying to get some time to himself, maybe to pray or whatever he wants to do, right? In 24, it does say actually that he was left alone, so he is by himself at that point. And we'll see this interesting story of Jacob wrestling, right? So, in the end of 32, Jacob is left alone. And he wrestles with a man until daybreak, it says. And then it gives the details, right?
This is not an angel, it's a man, right?
Well, we're going to talk about that, Sharon. So it says he wrestled with a man until daybreak. When he saw they had not prevailed against him, and he, that would be the man, right, touched his socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled. And then he said to him, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So who's he? They're both he, right? So I think the man says, "Let me go until dawn's breaking," and then Jacob says, "I'll not let you go unless you bless me," unless I have that incorrect or reversed. Could be. And he says, "What's your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." And Jacob asked him and said, "Please tell me your name." And he said, "Why is it you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved." Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Peniel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore, to this day, the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh and the sinew of the hip. Interesting, information there included, right? That they don't eat that part of animals for that reason, to remember that. But let's focus on what happens. And Sharon, asked the question that everybody probably wants to answer. Who did he wrestle with, right? So it starts off, he says he wrestled with a man until daybreak. But then as the story is, or the occurrence is written up more, we're told more, right? And so then what are we told later? Based on the name.
Well, my bad is capitalized.
Okay, so some Bibles might capitalize different things there, yeah. So he says based on the name, and what he, based on the name and also what he says to him, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved." So now this is getting tricky, right? Because it says he wrestled with a man, but yet the name that is given by the man says that I've wrestled with God and I've seen him face to face. So we have to kind of figure this story out, right? And I'm hoping you'll tell me the answer.
The regular man does not have the authority to change his name.
What's that?
The regular
A regular man wouldn't have the authority to change his
the
name?
authority
Okay.
to change his name.
All right. But no man can see God's face and live, right? So we got a lot of, this is a tough one to.
Backing way up. Weren't there two men that came to Abraham and they had the form of men? Those were angels on their way.
In the form of men, yes.
Sodom and Gomorrah. So
Angels
can that be applied here then?
seems to be that
Angel of God?
angels could take on the form of men, yeah. Right. And some have entertained angels unawares. We know that passage, right? So there's lots of interesting things to take in here, right? But it does say that you have striven with God, men and with men and have prevailed. That's why he changes his name, right? We'll talk about that a little more too.
He had to be more powerful because he just touched his head.
Yes.
Dislocated.
Yeah.
If you're wrestling, or in any
You got to pop that thing out. Yeah, right.
It takes a lot of force to do that. So
Yeah.
he just touched it. So he had to have divine powers.
Some sort of power. Okay. It's interesting to just take in all of what you think. I'm not telling you I'm holding my cards closely yet. That's what I think. But I'm just curious what you all think. And there's no wrong. I don't think there's in classes like this. Maybe we could be wrong or something, but it's good to discover what's out there, what ideas are out there, and try to come to the conclusion. Right? Gail, do you have a thought?
I just noted that I have a footnote that there was a similar struggle in Judges 13, where an angel struggled with Manoah and asked his name, and the angel did the same thing. Like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Thank you. That's Judges 13, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, who did he wrestle with? We're not ready yet? Okay. More questions or comments? Go ahead.
No man has seen God and lived.
Right. I think in this, I guess my thoughts are that it's a figurative representation. Figurative in the sense that he's wrestling with God or seeing God face to face. I remember Jacob names the place Peniel, right? Not God. So Jacob names the place Peniel, for I've seen God face to face. So if you're Jacob, and this is the first time is this how many times has Jacob wrestled the messenger of God before? None, right? So this is a one-time, first-hand occurrence, right? This is a very unique thing to him, right? He's never experienced this before. He's not sure what's all happened. I guess I'm reading it as though I've seen God face to face. My life has been preserved. He's wrestled with I'm leaning towards he's wrestled with an angel, and the angel is a representative of God. He's one of God's servants, and so he says, I've wrestled, I've seen God face to face. This is the closest I've gotten to God, right? And so he names it that way. There's different, so there's different arguments or thoughts either way. So go ahead, Mike. I'll come back.
Yeah, to say it literally would be to contradict what the scripture says.
Right, that's the hard part of it.
Just pointed out. Of course, as you said, angels represent God, and Jacob seems to have a very keen awareness of those things that represent God to him. You remember when?
Okay.
You remember when Esau came to him and forgave him?
Yeah.
What he said? He said, this is verse 10
12, 10,
33.
12, yep.
No, please, for now I have found favor in your sight. Then take my present from my hand, for I see your face as one sees the face of God.
Yeah.
So that may be the sense in which he is seeing it, that those things that represent God so closely, either in character or in some other manifestation of power or blessing, that's as if he's seen God face to face.
Right.
And I think we even get close to that sort of thing when we make observations about particular aspects of his created world. That's a demonstration of the power of God, or something that is just so majestic, or something like that.
Okay.
We have that sense of the presence of God through his work or his power.
Right.
So, obviously, it's not direct seeing it face to face.
Well, that's a great point. I did not make the connection with the 33 there. As one sees the face of God. I agree, though. I think he's, as I said, this. He's never had this happen to him before. He's never been wrestled by an angel before. He doesn't know what to expect. Right? He doesn't know how to describe it. Right. So I think Jacob is simply describing it that way. And as Mike said, there are other passages in the Bible that tell us that having that face-to-face interaction with God is not something that's really going to happen. So where one would live. So it seems to me that it would have to be a representative of God. It would have to be an angel of God, and angels would have those powers, right? We've already seen in Genesis that angels can have powers of destruction, right, if you will. So touching the hip or whatever, I think they could handle that.
What was his blessing that he got?
Well, let's see. It says, and he blessed them there. That's it. I don't know. I was not able to see what that might be. Was anybody else see anywhere else? I didn't, but I could be wrong. Unless the blessing was the name change, maybe. But that happened right before that, so I'm not really sure.
Just one other place, Hosea 12, verse 4, speaks of it as an angel directly.
What do you mean speaks as a...
That he wrestled with an angel.
Oh, okay, another one. Okay, yeah. Of Job's wrestling, or of Jacob's wrestling match, you mean, yeah. Yes, that's in Hosea. Okay, Gail, do you have a thought?
I was just interested in the hip socket thing. Because
Okay.
I think when any of us wrestle with God, you're left changed. To me, it's almost representative of what happens to you.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to get in. Yeah, let's get into that. So why the wrestling match? I guess I was, when I asked my question, explain the wrestling match. I asked the question in the mechanics of what happened. But really, what I want to get at is why the wrestling match? Why did God do this in this manner with Jacob? Right? Why the name change? I think the name change is tied in here too, right? Because of the name. So, what was the names? What are the name Jacob's name meaning and his new name the meaning of his new name. What does that have any significance? Right? Does that relate to this wrestling match? Any thoughts on that? So Jacob's name means he's a supplanter, right? He was the one that took Esau's foot, and he's the one that cheated Esau. But then he changed his name to
Israel,
Israel. What does that mean?
Prince of God.
Prince of God?
Having power with God, Israel means.
Having
It can mean God's fighter.
God's
It can
fighter?
mean
Okay.
One who struggles with
one who
God.
struggles with God, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
God had a new role and purpose for Jacob. That's why the name.
Yeah. And that's why more than that, and that's why the wrestling match, I think. So I think the wrestling match, I don't know, don't take this, I don't know if it's too casual in my mind, but it's like you push the reset button. Does that make sense? Kind of God sending the angel with Jacob to, again, like I said, just to kind of press reset, get him to realize that if you strive with me, I'll strive with you, right? If you struggle with me, I'll struggle with you. If you work, I'll work with you. Really reminding Jacob that what did Jacob pray for? Remember, right? He prayed back in 9 through 12. I'm unworthy of your loving kindness, right? And he says, "Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. I fear him." And so you remember, he prayed to God that he would deliver him, right? And I just think this wrestling match is a very unique way, a very interesting way for him to send a message to Jacob, to communicate with Jacob, to let him know that if you're willing to strive, I'm willing to strive as well. And he was, right? Because they wrestled until daybreak, didn't they? It wasn't that he just gave up right away or got scared. And they wrestled till daybreak. So he was willing to strive with them. Go ahead, Mike.
It might also be that he was striving with God before.
Yes,
That is,
sure.
He was struggling, no doubt, as we might struggle.
Yep.
Something along the lines that Gail was pointing out. We struggle with God within ourselves. We struggle to follow God. And Jacob did some things where he struggled, and he was struggling against God.
Yeah.
So now he has this fight with him, and he ends up with something that is a lasting symbol.
Just going to bring that up,
in a sense of his defeat now, or surrender, we might say. Because he didn't. It says he prevailed, but he didn't actually win the battle.
No, not really. Not that I guess I don't get it that way either.
He continued through the battle, but he didn't. They obviously didn't overcome the angel. If the angel left him wounded, so to speak. Of course, that I don't know how far you want to go now, but that became a perpetual reminder of his struggle, maybe against God. It might be like you're saying, well, now struggle with me, and work for me. But it's definitely the socket issue seems to be something that he will never forget, that incident throughout his life, and so that he will be reminded.
I think you're right. I think you're right on. I think the side, the hip, the limp, definite lifelong reminder for him, right? Something that he would, if any of you have an ailment that you've had for more than a year or two, right? And do you think about it every day? Yeah, of course you do, right? You got that thing that bothers you every day or whatever it is. It's really hard to get that stuff off your mind, right? So I think the hip thing, you just picture it. And imagine their lifestyle. He's right now in a kind of a nomadic lifestyle. He's traveling, walking, whatever, every day, and he's going to remember that every single day, and remember that occurrence and the name change. Struggle with God. Okay, I'm struggling with God. That's his name now, right? So it's a lasting memory.
Two things about Paul. He was given a thorn in his side, or flesh, and then it says that it was a reminder. My grace is sufficient for you. 2 Corinthians 12. So there's something similar here, I think, that he never forgot to. He said he's unworthy in the prayer
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
mentioned.
yep.
And so he never forgot after that the need to depend upon God.
Yeah.
And of course, that God is the stronger, and but as you said, He'll help too. So it's hard to figure it all out. We don't have all the specific details. But.
So in 33, he really divides the children and separates from the family. He's worried that when they're going to get attacked by Esau, right? But look at verse 4. Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, right? So they run literally like you see in the movies kind of thing, right? They run to each other. He embraces him. He falls on his neck. He kisses him and wept, and they wept. Lifts his eyes. He sees all these. Who are all these people? These are the children whom God has graciously given your servant. And so very, again, kind of iconic, kind of movie scene, that we picture connection back between these two. And Esau says, I have plenty, my brother, right? He says, you don't have to, hey, I'm doing well too, right? I'm doing just fine. You don't have to make up for this, right? And take my gift which is brought to you because God has dealt graciously with me because I have plenty, in verse 11. Thus he urged him and he took it. So he prevails on him, right? He says, no, you take it. That make me feel good, right? There's a lesson there, right? Have you guys ever struggled with that when somebody tries to give you something and you just don't take it? You know what that does to the other person sometimes, right? So just a little mini thought there, just something to think about. It's really hard sometimes, but maybe thinking, no, I don't deserve that or whatever. But you're taking away their blessing of trying to do something good to you, right? And just keep that in mind. Anyways, moving on from that. So that's the occurrence in 33. Esau says, let's take our journey. I'll go before you. But he says, hey, my family, my children, everybody's getting pretty wore out. I can't just go at this moment. And he says, let me pass the troop my leisure. And Esau says, leave some of your people here with me and let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. And so they really work together. They come back together. They help each other. Jacob gives him, his gift, and Esau takes care of his family as well, right? So it's a great end to a terrible situation, right? There's lessons to be had there, right? Of what we can do. Do you read this and think? Do you think ill of Esau? I can't believe I would have punched him in the nose, right? Sometimes I think that's maybe our reaction, right? I can't believe he would just take him back like that, right? But there are some spiritual connections in this passage, in this story, to our Savior Jesus, right? So just think about that. When we sin against God, we sin against His Son. We sin against the Holy Spirit. We make decisions that are just maybe foul or foolish or whatever it is, and the forgiveness that we're allotted back, right? And we know a lot of places in the New Testament that talk about forgiving our brothers, right? 70 times 7, Jesus says. So those concepts are important, and we see that here with Esau. We see that here with Jacob. But Jacob had that. He had that fear, right? Did you see the gift as some, the gift that he gave? Did you see that as just kind of some fake thing that he was trying to do to make him happy and keep him from killing him, or did Jacob really feel like I really need to pay my brother back, right? I ruined his life, right? So he's trying to do anything he can to recompense, right? And it's a great thing to see at the end of 33. Any thoughts on that story or any comments on that? Unfortunately, we're going to get into another kind of bad story in 34. But any thoughts on their reconciliation? Go ahead, Mike.
This is just more about Esau's perspective.
Yeah.
Jacob wronged him.
Yes.
And, you've been pointing out that he forgave him. Of course, that's all in essence with what he thought about Jacob or how he felt toward Jacob.
Yeah.
But his perspective is God has blessed me.
Yeah.
So I think he's able
a
to
good point.
keep that focus. Whatever people do to us, that's not what the Lord does to us.
Yeah.
The Lord is the one who is blessing us, and people sometimes wrong us, and our attitude toward people sometimes become, or the way in which people treat us sometimes is reflected back on, we think God is somehow forsaken us.
Right.
Esau didn't have that perspective. He said,
It's a good
the Lord's
observation.
been good to me.
Yeah. I've
He's
had plenty of my
blessed me.
brothers. And,
Yeah. Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord.
No, good observation. Okay, so 34, we're going to see Jacob and his family settling in this, is it Shechem, the land of Shechem, or the area of Shechem, right? Or that's the person, sorry. The land of Canaan, but the family is the family of Shechem. They settle near, it's Padanaram. They camp before the city. So they end up back in Canaan, right? And they're near this family, the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father. We're going to see this interaction now between these two families. Okay. So Dinah, who's Dinah again?
The sister Leah's daughter.
That's Leah's daughter, right? So that would be Leah's daughter. And it's pointed out there in 34. This is Jacob's daughter, Jacob and Leah's daughter. Okay, the only daughter, correct? Right? Remember that? All right. So the only daughter. So, where does Dinah make any mistake? No. Slightly. What does it say? I don't know if you picked this out or not. Maybe I'm overreading it, but what did she do in 34? Well, she went out to visit the daughters of the land, right? Well, yeah. So maybe she made a mistake, maybe not, right? Maybe she was trying to be friendly, but maybe she should have stayed with her own family a little bit longer, right, before figuring out the land, but maybe wanted to go out and see, the different culture, the different people, right? And she goes out to visit the daughters of the land. Whether or not that's a mistake or not, I don't know. Just something I noticed that maybe she should have took some of her brothers with her or something, right? But she goes out on her own, and of course, when she's out, Shechem, son of Hamor, the prince of the land, he sees her, right, and he takes her and he rapes her, and it's terrible. And 3 and following, it seems like if you read this, that I've done this, but I really like her, so I should try to make amends with this, right? It's just kind of a nasty situation. So he tries to, fix this, and they come to Jacob, and then what? What do they try to do? Well, here, we can have her, and you can have some of our daughters, and let's make this better, right? Let's make the situation better, right? And that's what they try to do. And the Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak to him. 7. They're grieved about this, obviously. But let's see. Where did Jacob's sons come in? He doesn't tell them right away. Is that correct? Is that 7? Oh, they heard it. They came in from the field and they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very angry because of what had been done. A disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter. So that's where his sons actually do hear of it in 7. And so again, Shechem and it tries to work with Jacob. They try to make the situation better. It doesn't really show much. If you look to verse 5, Jacob kept silent until they came in, right? We don't really see what does Jacob do, right? What does Jacob say? We don't really see too much of that, right? So who steps in, though, in verse, I think it's 13, is where the brothers or the sons step in, right? So unfortunately, we don't really know, unless I'm missing something, what did Jacob try? What did he say? But we do see in verse 8, the soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter, right? And so, we see Hamor's side of it. We see his side of the agreements, right, or what I want to do. But we don't really see what Jacob says, because 13 tells us Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor with deceit because they defiled him. And so it seems like they step in, or Jacob lets them take care. I don't know. We don't really know, right? It's kind of interesting. But we won't read all of that next part there. So what's the deception? What was the plan? It was kind of a dirty plan, really. Yeah. That's crafty. You got to give them that, but not good.
They're taking the sign of the covenant and making it into a kind of a bargaining chip.
Yeah, absolutely. They're taking the circumcision sign of the covenant and saying, "Well, hey, you know what? We'll let this happen. We'll let this. But all the men, you guys all have to go get circumcised." Okay. And the sons of Shechem, they are the siblings or the family of Shechem, the sons of Hamor. Sorry, I'm getting all these names confused. Their words seemed reasonable to him, right? Verse 18. So okay, well, we really want this daughter. We really want him to have Dinah. So I guess we'll go through with this, right? So that's the situation. They go through with it, and again, I said it is kind of it's a crafty plan. It's a wicked plan, especially using that symbol of the covenant of circumcision. And they do this, and why do they do that? Why do they trick them into being circumcised, if you will?
Well, I think my question is.
Oh, you got a question?
Because they were circumcised, they agreed to do that, to become one unit of people.
Right.
Exchange sisters for each other. But,
yeah.
But just being circumcised doesn't really make you an Israelite.
No, I think they were just doing it to trick them, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. No, I don't think it was like, okay, well, now you can become one of us now. I think that's maybe how they maybe sold it, or they were planning on that. Really, when you read the story, their full intention was, and I get it, I would imagine, these men are going to be pretty laid up for a while, aren't they? These are grown men. These are not 8-day-old babies, right? These are grown men. They're going to be laid up for a minute, okay? And so if you have these men, if they all are circumcised and they're laid up for a minute, and that's going to help, right? And it helps them. Easy pickings. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in 13 it says they spoke deceitfully.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was deceit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The plan was not for anything righteous by any means.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To give them a physical advantage.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But I wouldn't go as far. I would say going back to 3:2 that it was a rape. I don't see Dinah.
Well, it says by force, though. I mean,
What's that?
mine, New American Standard says by force. So I guess.
Mine says he took her.
Oh.
I would probably challenge that text, because he took her and lay with her, but look at his reaction after.
Yeah.
He says, and he loved the young woman and spoke kindly to the young woman.
Yeah.
So Shechem's father, give me this young woman as a wife.
Yeah.
So whether that text, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think it depends on how it reads.
I see it more as they jumped the gun, and she had, there was no right.
And that he didn't have the right for her, maybe that way. Yeah, could be. Well, either way, I don't think it changes the story
Right.
really.
And look at down the road. I mean, look at what his love for that woman got his dad, to go along, and then you got all the men to go along.
I'm not sure I would have agreed to my brother's plan if he came to me with this.
I agree with you though, on that lay with her.
Yeah.
In the New King James says lay with her.
Lay with her? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Either way.
And violated her, but.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it does say in 7, the sons thought he did a disgraceful thing.
Yeah, something was.
Yeah, but a disgraceful thing is having relations outside of marriage.
Yeah. Either way, I don't know. We need to. No matter what actually happened. I don't think it changes the story. It was disgraceful, whatever it
I think
was.
she put herself out there.
Yeah.
I don't think she was completely innocent.
No, hard to say. So either way, I want to focus more on some other things, though. Let's focus on, so unfortunately, Jacob has wrestled with God. Jacob has, again, I kind of picture this as he's, I don't know if it's too casual of saying, but this kind of reset, this reminder. God gives him this reminder, but unfortunately, what we see in 34, his sons don't, they're not acting righteously. They're not acting in a trusting way. We've seen this so many times, right? This is what I'm trying to get across. We've seen this so many times. Not trusting in maybe God or trusting in the plan that God might come up with, or anger or whatever it is coming into play, right? In so many situations, think of the deceit that Jacob did to Esau, right? Now his sons following in that path, unfortunately. And they take advantage of this physical advantage, right? So they're in pain, right? And they go on the city unawares and they kill every male. They kill Hamor, they kill his son Shechem, right? So they basically kill everybody and take Dinah back. And Jacob's, they take their flocks, they take everything, they loot everything, right? You have brought, in verse 30, though, we see the reaction. This is obviously not something that Jacob is okay with, right? So not something that he's okay with. Not something that he authorized, hey, that's a great plan. I'm full. So clearly, again, it's kind of odd. Like, we don't see, was Jacob, thinking about it? Was he, trying to grieve? Was he trying to figure out what to do? And then the sons just stepped in and said, we'll take care of this, Dad, right? And they jump in. And obviously in 30, Jacob says to Simeon and Levi, why those two? Are they maybe kind of leading, really? But it does say in 25 that those are the two that kind of take the lead. And in 30, he says to them, you brought trouble on me by making me odious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and my men being few in number. They will gather together against me and attack me, and I'll be destroyed in my household. But they said, but should they treat our sister like a harlot, right? So they just don't seem to grasp, even at the end of that chapter there, the situation.
Well, and it's vengeance is mine, saith the
Yeah.
Lord, and they took it upon themselves.
That's right.
Now you brought reproach, you're obnoxious, you brought enemies.
Yep. Now you got people that are going to be coming to us, right? Instead of,
Now
again,
it's gonna be fearful.
letting God maybe handle it, letting God, seeking God's wisdom. They didn't do that, right? They didn't seek that, and they took on their own choice, and we see the result of it. So that's the end of 34. Sorry to end on such a nasty story, but we're going to get into 35, 36, 37. We'll get into those next week. So be ready. I've got the new material out to you. We'll get into that hopefully as well. So read ahead and get the stories down. Thanks, guys.